Mic check 1 2, it's the Y2K collector, and while everyone's running to the Xbox 360, I guess I'll just run towards the PlayStation 3. But in all seriousness, I actually happened to stop by my local GameStop, and my eye caught a couple of PS3 games that I don't typically see at my GameStop, and these were actually in pretty good condition and they were complete. Also, it is Pro Week at GameStop, so if you're a Pro member, you do get an additional 10% off on pre-owned games. Now, they did have a copy of Smash Brothers Melee in there, but because I already have it in the collection, I didn't buy it. I'm not really gonna just buy something to flip it because I'm not in the flipping game. But these were two that I was interested to add to my collection. This one I thought was particularly interesting, Half-Life. I remember this being a very intriguing game, and I can't remember if the first one was released on the Dreamcast or on the N64. I can't remember. You guys let me know down in the comments. I know I have a lot of gaming historians that follow the channel, but I saw this and it caught my eye and it was complete, so I went ahead and got it. This says that it's the most complete Half-Life 2 collection to date. Now, I think this is actually a first-person shooter, which I'm not really a first-person shooter type of guy. It does have like 3 games in it, 3 games in one, so hopefully they're not all first-person shooter, or 5 games in one, sorry. Hopefully all these games aren't first-person shooters, because if that's the case, I might have to take this back. I hate first-person shooters. Don't kill me if you're a first-person shooter fan. It's just not my preference. And that's okay. We all have preferences. I know there's a huge fan base for like the GoldenEye. I think GoldenEye was probably the only first-person shooter that I actually attempted to get good at. And that was more of like a peer pressure thing because at the time, like there was nothing bigger than GoldenEye. When in GoldenEye's prime, there was nothing bigger than GoldenEye when that game came out. And I mean, if you slept over anyone's house, if you did any after-school activities, if you had any friends at all, back when GoldenEye came out, you had to at least be decent at GoldenEye because that's all anyone wanted to play. I think GoldenEye was probably the last first-person shooter game that I played. Just because the motion sickness, and I don't know if it was just because of the way the N64 was back in the day, but I just remember I got to a point because I used to play it by myself. Like I would try to beat the levels in hopes that as I got good at playing the levels, I would get better in like versus battles. And I wound up playing the daggone game so much that it got me sick. So after that I just stopped with the first person shooters, and I haven't really messed with them again since. Anyway. Also saw this copy of Devil May Cry HD collection, and this is pretty cool, right? I do like the fact that Sony does have these like collections on their console. They have like multiple God of War collections. They have the Eco and Shadow of Colossus collection, but I had all 3 Devil May Cry games on the PlayStation 2 back when my PlayStation 2 collection was over 150 games. Sold off a ton of PlayStation 2 games. But I had all 3, and then I sold them all when I did a big sell-off. So I'm actually glad to kind of get them back, even if they're in this format. And it was only $10, or like $11. So I wasn't too mad about that. All in all, both games coming out to $30 with tax. So that was a pretty cool deal for me. And I think that's the train that I'm going to get on. I still have all of the PS3 games that I picked up the other day when I went to that thrift store, as well as the PS3. Well, actually, no, I returned some PS3 games back to GameStop because they were the Naruto games. And I'm not too hip on the Naruto games at the moment. So, but I am keeping the PS3 games that I got in that larger pickup that I got. So that is pretty cool. And I think I'm going to stay on the PS3 train. While everyone's going after the 360 and while the prices are inflated, I'm going to let everyone just go crazy on the 360. I'm even seeing where 360 consoles are going up in price now. I remember at my thrift store, not even a year ago, like 6 months ago, 360 consoles were so cheap that they weren't even kept like behind the counter. They just put them out there. Like they just threw them out there with like the old remote controls and old VCRs. Like that's how little respect the 360 had in the reseller world, right? Like people would like literally step over those things and say, 360, I don't want it. And now it's like the hottest thing since sliced bread. And I'm not gonna hate. I'm really not gonna hate on the 360. If you're into the 360, go for it, man. Have at it. For me, like I said in a video earlier, I've got what I want, and I think I'm gonna stick to that. But I've been thinking about, I've been having some thoughts about collecting, right? Retro collecting or just video game collecting in general. And this is a thought that I'm really going to expand on probably more tomorrow morning. I usually like to do my morning videos. May have to do one earlier than normal because tomorrow's going to be an early day for me. But I've just been thinking, like, what would gaming be like without the internet today? Like, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you know what video games were like before the internet. Video games were, it was this experience that where you could go and lock yourself away and get lost in your own universe of a game. There was no internet connection. There was no little trophy sign that popped up on the screen. There was no notification that your buddy had just jumped online and now you could game with him. When you put in a cartridge in an old school console and hit power, it was just you and the game and your imagination and your thoughts and your skills and your ability to make it through the different levels. And there are times where I play like the PlayStation 4 or even PlayStation 3, and I kind of get a little annoyed when I see these little pop-ups and things like that because I don't feel alone in the game. I don't feel like it's just me. And that was the beauty. There's beauty in the solitude of gaming sometimes. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm always down for a great couch co-op. I'm always down to, I've played games online. I've played Friends and Smash Brothers online and things like that. But sometimes there's just this solitude that you look for when you go to play, a certain game. Like when you put in Ocarina of Time, you weren't looking to see if your buddy was online, or you weren't worried if you got some online trophy or if you were top ranked on some leaderboard. You were just trying to get through the levels, man. It was you and the game. And there's beauty in that solitude. There's beauty in the solitude of gaming sometimes that I think gets lost on some of these newer consoles that are just constantly connected. Because even if your friends aren't watching you, or even if you're not gaming with someone online, you're still being tracked by a server that's keeping track of your performance, your ability to beat the level, how much trophies you get, leaderboards, and all that stuff. I don't know. I have to think that somewhere in the midst of all that, data is being collected, even if it's just your gaming data, even if it's your ability to get through the levels. And that's why sometimes I just love popping in an old school cartridge, because I know that my Super Nintendo isn't connected to a server. My Sega Genesis isn't plugged into a server that's collecting data to give me a trophy or rank me somewhere. But that could just be the old school gamer in me. I don't know. Let me know what you think. It is the Y2K Collector. It has been quite a day. I'm going to go ahead and eat some burgers and fries. Hopefully you had a good hump day. We made it through the first half of the week. It's all downhill from here. I've got a pretty cool bunch of, not bunch, but I got a pretty cool video lined up for this Sunday. So I will see you there. Have a good evening. I'll see you next time. Take it easy.